It's now time for this month's broadcast of Learning Now TV.
Hello and welcome to the March edition of Learning Now Television. The daffodils are out here in Wales. It's not raining. We're turning a corner. Spring has sprung. Nigel, how are you? Are you enjoying the change of the seasons?
I am enjoying it. It's actually a very noticeable change of the seasons. So sadly, Learning Now TV keeps going and it doesn't notably change, but we do incrementally improve as we move forward. But no big season change here, sadly, Kate.
We should do an outside broadcast. Outside broadcast.
That's what we should do in the sunshine. That would be wonderful. So would you like to know who's on the show this week?
Yeah. Yes, I was just about to ask you. Yeah, who's on the show?
Well, it's good. We've got some really interesting conversations going. First one is with Egle Viniscate, who's an AI specialist, L&D AI, and we have a really fascinating conversation about AI moving forward. What's it going to be like? What do we need to think about rather than moving back? What have we done? So it's a really interesting projection that everybody should listen to. And then David James is from 360-degree Learning. David is introducing a whole new L&D maturity model, which they've been developing for over a year. And it's an alternative L&D maturity model based on a more complex framework than any I've seen before. And essentially, you can feed the data in and get an instant feedback on where you might be. So it's a kind of conversation opener. It's very, very interesting. And then Giles Smith, he's the CEO of Media Zoo. I love that name for a company, Media Zoo. And they set up something called Zooniversity, which is a great, in itself, that is a great
Love
word.
That.
Zooniversity. Yeah. And it's basically a way of recruiting and bringing in young people and getting them up to speed in their industry. So it's a really good thing to do. And they've taken a really professional stance and done something very, very neat and very, very interesting. So please tune into that. And then finally, we've got our news bulletin. And guess what? Rob Clark is giving us all the news and views and sins and scandals in L&D. So enjoy the show.
Fantastic. Enjoy.
It's a pleasure to talk to David James. I really enjoy our conversations. And today we're talking about something that we haven't talked about before, because 360-degree Learning has spent well over a year working on an L&D maturity model. And that's what we're going to share. But it's not just a paper model, it's an interactive model. So you do the test, you get a report, and then you can engage with your team or with 360-degree Learning or anyone else to discuss what you do about improving your score. So, David, welcome to Learning Now TV. It's a real pleasure to see you. Now, tell us all about 360-degree Learning maturity model. Tell us what it is.
Thanks, Nigel. So a maturity model, like a maturity model elsewhere, it helps any individual or team to assess where they are, benchmark, and also plan a route forward from their current position. And why I think this is so important for L&D is that we've been susceptible in previous years or decades, Nigel, I don't need to tell you how long, to be seeking silver bullets. And what this acknowledges is that there isn't one silver bullet, that we need to assess ourselves on all of our responsibilities, as well as our relationships inside our organization, in order to fully understand where we are, why we are where we are, where we need to be and what that step looks like, taking into consideration all the dynamics that have meant that we are where we are. So respecting our situation before seeing the path forward.
So it's like you almost got a three-dimensional model. You've got a Rubik's Cube, and whereas the Rubik's Cube is spinning around, you don't know which side's blue and which side's red. This actually allows you to stop, take stock, and look at where you've got mostly blue, but you've really got some problems with red. So that's a very crude analogy. But tell me about the dimensions. What are the parameters of this model that we can talk about? How have you built it, basically?
Okay, so there are three parameters to it. So first of all, we have the levels that move from reactive to proactive, from proactive to impacting to strategic, and then finally to transformative. Now, I'm sure that people will recognize that language. And so what we try to do is not reinvent or create a language, is try to identify from the language we understand what that actually means. So if we feel as if we're on the hamster wheel, we're reactive. So what does that look like? What does that feel like? And so we've got these themes that run alongside it that include learning strategy, leadership alignment, processes and tools, learning metrics, subject matter expertise, contribution, and
training
two others
processes.
on there.
Training processes.
That's it. And are all of those things, so we can assess against those levels where we actually sit. And what we're able to recognize is, as I said, if we are where we should be, how we've sat where we are, but also where there's misalignment, because we might see that our strategy, we're way ahead. We might think that we're impacting, but in terms of, say, leadership perception, we may be well behind. Now, what's the point of running a strategic function if leadership thinks you're reactive? Because that dynamic changes. So it sees for that congruence. And then that third dimension is KPIs, which is, how do I know where we are? And those KPIs would be, if you are a strategic or transformative as far as L&D strategy is concerned, what will you be seeing, doing, and delivering in order to do that? So as you mentioned, we've got this self-assessment tool that helps people to see where they are, but objectively considering those KPIs.
Yeah, you basically pin yourself. So you say, does this sound like us, or does it not sound like us? And you work your way through the list and say, yep, I think we're actually strategic here. You read the description, you make your choice, and you run through all 7 of the metrics, you make your decision, and then you press a magic button and it puts out an output to help you recognize it plots you basically on one of those spider graphs, so you can see where you're close and where you're a long way away, and then that helps you focus. And as you say, if you're not seen by leadership as being strategic, but you actually are doing some good strategic work, there's an obvious area where you could do some lobbying, or you've got to put some effort in to bring yourself up to that standard. So you're not trying to say you want everyone to be bland. What you want to do is help people see where they are as accurately as possible, and then take steps to improve on the key metrics, the things that the organization thinks are most important, or the team thinks is most important for progress and delivery, essentially. So it's a helpful tool, isn't it? And unlike others, it's across those 7 areas, those 7 dimensions, and then the 5 levels across the 7 dimensions. So there's quite a lot of variables built in. Plus, you get a sense of where you ought to be. If you're really trying to be strategic, this is what it means in concrete, identifiable terms. So even if you didn't even do the survey, you've got a really good indicator of what excellence looks like, what a maturity model looks like, essentially, and you can plot yourself. So it's very helpful. And is it free, David? Can anyone just jump into the 360-degree learning website and have a go?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the idea here is that we, first of all, we want to promote progressive practice, because after all, in learning development, we've been hamstrung by our inability to demonstrate predictable, reliable impact. That has then a knock on engagement, whether that's the workforce or leadership. And then when it comes to what is the problem of our time as far as business and learning and development is concerned, skills gaps, we're able to more predictably and reliably close those. So yes, it's completely free. And the idea behind it, Nigel, is once you've done the self-assessment as you've acknowledged, it's then a conversation starter, because what's really important is that you take that to your team, maybe get the whole team to assess where they think they are, and then discuss.
Then you've got a really good debate.
That's right. Is this where we need to be? Is this holding us back? If we want to be more potent in our learning and development, in our conversations, in our delivery and on our impact, where is it that we need to stand? And what it shows as well is that natural progression, because it's going to be nigh on impossible for someone to go to reactive to transformative, because you've got to take your organization with you. You've got stakeholders at all levels of the organization that are imposing their impressions and expectations of learning and development on the team. So there's good reason why you are where you are. But if you could plot that route and paint a stronger, more compelling picture of what learning and development can achieve in a language that everybody can recognize, then you've truly got a path, and then you can inch forward. You can pick your battles. You can strive, achieve, and progress. And I think that in some of the examples that we've had already, and we've only launched this in the last month, we've had heads of L&D discuss this with their CEO, who's taken a really keen interest, because of course they want potent L&D, but the contradiction, as you will well know, Nigel, is that what people expect L&D to look and smell like doesn't often lead to predictable, reliable impact. So you can show the path and say, but if we operated like this, then you would get the results that you want. And then all of a sudden the light bulbs come on, and that conversation is the beginning of progress and via action.
Beginning of a journey. It also allows the L&D team to say, well, this is where we think we are. Let's ask these 2-3 stakeholders to do the same analysis, and then we'll compare results. So let's see what they think we're doing. And you've got I can see a whole range of really interesting conversations breaking out all over the place if you use it honestly and you use it broadly in the organization, and to have a kind of target to say, this is where we're going. What do you think? If we were targeted around all of those things, they go, yes, that's what we need. You go, right, okay, this is the pathway. This is where we need to move from and to. There's a much better conversation than, you don't give us enough recognition, we need a seat at the table. This gives you some concrete identity, doesn't it? And some flesh on the bones of, we need to be there, because it answers a very simple question: is what it looks like, why we need to do it, and what the pathway is moving forward. And these 3 things are really important. I can't imagine any L&D team not finding this a really interesting debate, whether they do it all on their own, they do it individually and then come back collectively, or they share it more broadly. There's a whole bunch of conversations. And what we put on the screen, David, is a QR code, so people can scan the QR code and go straight to the survey. Let's just spool back a little bit. How would you use it? So you are 360-degree learning. You've put it out there. Give me an example of how you would interact with a customer around this tool. How would you use it?
So first of all, I think it's a really honest assessment, an objective assessment of where you are. I think everybody likes to be benchmarked, and this is a safe as well as accurate way of people seeing where they are on those 7 key themes. So it's as broad as you can make it. What I think it helps as well is to recognize where you're stuck. I mean, a lot of the time, especially if we've been in a learning and development function for 2, 3, 4, maybe more years, sometimes we get frustrated that we're not progressing as much as we'd like to. But we're able to see where we're bottlenecked. And especially, and the way that will manifest is it will show us where we are, but especially the steps it would take to get to the next level of maturity. And what I love about this is that we've done the maturity levels like they're rungs on a ladder. Everyone is a natural successor, and you could see why. but everyone is very distinct in its expectations, both from all levels of stakeholders. So imagine, so if you were stuck, you could probably see what that rung should look like, what the conversation should be, what the activity should be, what the planning should be, and then what the communication should be in order to get the stakeholders. So it helps with that stuck, but it also helps with one I think is just as important, perhaps is neglected, Nigel, is PRing the efforts of L&D. So making a noise about what you plan to do, what you did, and the outcomes that you made, and then telegraphing the next level. So if you are, say, impacting, and let's paint a picture of what impacting is. You have your shop front, you have some bespoke cohorted L&D activities, you have business use cases, you might have sales enablement, you might have customer support training. So you're well spread, but you can't predictably and reliably demonstrate the impact of your efforts because it's all aimed at delivering learning. What it shows you is that next pivot point, which is strategic, is starting to plan the metrics before being involved in the getting involved in the solution. So it actually marks that out, and for me, that between the two levels, the biggest swing of expectations and activity and planning is that from impacting to strategic, and that's where we become more aligned, more integrated, and then more potent as a force within the organization. But what it shows you is that each of those rungs is very, very distinct. And it's what it takes. And I suppose what I'd wish that I'd had way back when, Nigel, is something that would show me what the vision of a impacting or strategic or transformative L&D function could look like, so that I could paint that compelling vision for my stakeholders as well. Because what we can get stuck in a lot of the time is just polishing up what we have. If you've got a functioning learning provision, then doing more or more interactive or more marketing might seem like the next progression, but really it's just more of the same. What this shows you is to achieve the next level, what you need to be accomplishing and promoting in order to get there.
Yeah, just clarity, metrics, a vision. It gives you a vision of where you go. So it's not just, I think we're doing great. Why do you think we're doing great? It's actually tangible. So you've got something to talk about, a plan to make, a roadmap to move forward on, and a clarity around really important terms. We think we're impacting. Well, what does that mean? You explain what that means. And that's fantastically helpful. So David, thank you so much for clarifying that. Scan the QR code. I can't imagine anybody not getting some benefit out of this. And it's not a great, complicated device that will take you hours. You can finish it in a few minutes, but the reward will go on for hours, weeks, months, and possibly help or set up the transformation of your whole operation in your team, but also across the piece as well. So David, a real pleasure talking to you as always, and the very best of luck. I hope thousands of people use this tool. It's a great tool. It's a really great tool. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nigel.
As ever, we welcome Rob Clark next with this month's Learning News Roundup. There's lots and lots happening as always. So we are looking at why vendors are looking to Europe and the Middle East for growth, why L&D job satisfaction is high, love that, and also how AI is transforming learning through personalized, scalable training.
The learning systems market in the UK is saturated. Where might opportunities lie next for vendors? Job satisfaction, treatment by employers, career progression and longer employment tenures are all on the increase. We have the latest on employment in L&D. The learning systems market has become saturated. There are fewer greenfield sites. Vendors' sales are often now a competitive displacement job. Where might future opportunities lie?
The economic climate is still having an effect on the learning systems market. But one of the things we highlight in the report is that, as you mentioned, actually the UK market is quite saturated. The vendors, you've got UK vendors, but also you've got other vendors around the world that come into the UK because it has been the leading market for quite a long time in Europe. But what's now happening is the rest of Europe is definitely picking up in terms of its desire for learning systems. But also what we've seen, and we highlight in the report as well, is because we look at EMEA, and actually the Middle East is beginning to really look for new solutions, if you like. When we have had corporate customers who have been looking in EMEA, the problem has been because of the really stringent data requirements there has only been a few of the vendors that have been able to kind of satisfy their needs. Even in the mid-enterprise market, a number of the vendors winning in the Middle East. So I think what needs to happen is those that are really kind of their comfort zone is English speaking areas. They need to break out of that. They need to put offices in some of the other European and Middle East places because it's feet on the ground that actually brings those sales in. And so to combat that kind of saturated UK market, we need to look a little bit further afield.
Job satisfaction in learning and development is consistently high. 79% of workers say they are happy in their role, compared to the national average of 70%. Employer relations have improved further over the last 12 months. Short-term employment tenures of under 1 year are down, and tenures of 3 or more years are up. And the number of those thinking of changing their job in the next 12 months is down slightly on last year.
In general terms, we are a relatively happy bunch in learning and development, and that's shown consistently through all of our work and salary surveys. 79% of people are happy in their roles in learning and development, compared to the CIPD Good Work Index, which is around 70%. So L&D as a function is a generally happy environment. We've started to see improvements in, for example, employer treatment stats as well. And with the questions around employer treatment, 35% of people feel that their treatment from their employer has either improved somewhat or significantly. That may well play into the macroeconomic challenges and just generally how happy people are to have a job rather than in that specific job. And we also have seen quite substantially that career progression and general satisfaction with career progression has increased. So 54% of people in general terms feel that there is great opportunity or okay opportunities within their current role. Short tenures have dropped significantly. What that suggests is that there is less hiring being done, which I think we can anecdotally agree is for sure the case. So those short tenures being people that have started a new job in the last 12 months. Median tenures or medium tenures have not massively changed at all. They've stayed relatively static. And long tenures are on the increase, which literally suggests people are staying in roles longer and they're more likely to stay in roles longer. Period of turbulence, very high salaries or improved offers over the course of the last 2 or 3 years post-COVID have definitely calmed down. And so one would expect that we're going to see more people staying in their roles longer, with the exception of redundancies. 40% of people are looking to leave their roles within the next 12 months, so a 40-60 split. Now, that isn't hugely different. It changes year on year, but it isn't hugely different from any other year. It's probably lower than the last few years. And again, that would make sense in a low macroeconomic environment. But 40% is still a sizable number. And so that's something that employers probably need to be aware of within the L&D context.
The Learning and Performance Institute and Microsoft have announced a new major event in the learning and development calendar on AI in learning.
So what we've seen over the last couple of years is this kind of tentative evolution and revolution where we're looking at bringing in some tools, we're looking at thinking about pilots and things like that. Now, what we're hoping with this is that we'll start to bring this idea of how do we move from strategic purpose through to things that can be deployed and then deployed at scale. We want not only learning leaders, learning practitioners, vendors who are able to bring production scale and production grade tool sets ready for the learning industry. All of those different aspects of the industry, bringing them together to not only talk, but show and demo and play and experiment. That hopefully will start this journey of long-term transformation, not only in terms of the tool sets that we use, but also the skills that the learning industry has to be able to make a lot of these new and exciting technologies part of business as usual.
AI gives us a unique ability to democratize learning for everyone, right? We could reach scale, we could reach, all the different, competencies that we want to train on, and folks can do it in an environment that really makes them feel comfortable. The speed in which we're going to be able to create curriculum that's meaningful, change curriculum that's meaningful, giving the people that have practical applications and sandboxes to be able to realize their potential and develop additional skill sets, I think it's going to be transformational. I mean, in fact, it already is transformational as far as like recommending, different learning paths for individuals based on their career profiles and et cetera. And so I just think that this is a tailwind that our industry is going to greatly benefit from.
And that's Learning News for March. A big thank you to all of my guests today and to all those who contributed news stories this month. And the sponsor of our news bulletins, CLO 100. Next month, we're reporting from Learning Tech. Yes, it's come around already again. We'll have reports from across the show. Until then, thank you for watching. It's goodbye from me, and I'll hand you back to Kate and Nigel.
Happy helps organisations create happy workplaces, based on a culture of trust and freedom where people make their own decisions without acknowledgement from managers. We have a core flagship programme, 4 days based across 3 months, where people come and tell what they have achieved. We call it the Happy Leadership Programme. Check it out at happy.co.uk or email me at henry@happy.co.uk.
I'm thrilled today to welcome Egle Vinuskaite to Learning Now Television. I'm going to spend some time talking to her about innovation, particularly focusing on AI. And Egle is the principal and founder of Nodes, and that is a learning innovation studio based in London, where she indeed is based, although her origins are in a place that I love in Lithuania, in the capital. So welcome to Learning Now TV. It's really good to see you. Really good to talk to you.
Good to see you, Nigel. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. First question, very simple question. What changes have you seen in AI in maybe the last 6 months, recently?
Yeah, 6 months is a bit of a time period in AI years. Of course, we had advances in multimodality, in search, which in our world is knowledge management, essentially. The whole AI agents conversation has blown up. But I would caution against focusing too much on frontier AI developments. By all means, stay informed, but also keep in mind that AI technology moves at a vastly different pace than AI implementation in organizations. And even that might move at a different pace than AI use in L&D specifically. So the way I see it, for most of our needs in L&D, we are not fully taking advantage of the AI that was available a year ago. And I would say that the more important variable is not where AI is at, but the creativity and strategic thought coming from L&D and how to use it.
Yes. Yeah, I accept that. I think you're absolutely right that we're talking about different moving streams, essentially, that it's not all moving together. So what's exciting you? What things have you seen that are in terms of not use of AI as a technology, but in terms of implementation, the use of AI inside business that excites you at the moment?
Well, there are a few things. Knowledge management is super exciting, which is a sentence I never thought I would say. We've been talking about performance support at the point of need for years, pretty much since I first found myself in this industry. But we have struggled to make that knowledge truly timely and accessible. And now we have the technology for it that can help us make sense of the hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of learning assets that enterprise organizations usually have. Leave tagging behind and all of the commotion that is related to that, and introduce consumer-grade search capability in L&D, which is a whole different way to interact with knowledge in organizations, and it's a whole different storefront for L&D to actually interact with employees and to create value in organizations. Another one is obviously skills, both skills intelligence and skills development. For skill development, conversational bots now have minimal latency, and we can start scaling personalized skill development if we're thoughtful about how we do it. It's something that we weren't able to do before. And although it doesn't seem like such a novelty anymore, based on our research with Don, relatively few L&D organizations are doing it. But this is something that I don't think that we appreciate enough. There's this tool that can do away with these perhaps artificial learning designs and actually give people the ability to practice without multiple choice questions, without actually by using their own voice, the way they speak, and get feedback on that, which is something that I find is amazing, and I'm still amazed 1 year on. And another thing I would be amiss not to mention skills intelligence. And if this technology fulfills this promise, it would be a step change for L&D, just like, in my view, just like digital advertising was for marketing. Because if you know what skills you have and what skills you need, you can be strategic. And that kind of hard analytics could put L&D at the same level as finance or marketing in enabling organizational strategy. That is a different kind of language. It's a different kind of way of thinking about professional development in organizations.
Certainly is, and also deeply personalized. So instead of being generically through a skills mincer, you end up with something that fits your profile, your knowledge, your aspirations, your career, your role. So it's a complex mashing of ideas. So you're 100% right. I think both those things are really exciting. So if I'm excited by this, if I'm listening to you, Egla, and thinking, whoa, where would I start? How do I get moving on this journey? What would you advise me to do?
The first step, if you're starting from zero, would be take stock of where you are. And that, so there are a few things that you have to do, in my opinion. The first one is look at what your team spends most of their time doing. So literally, you can look at your calendars and do an audit. So that's one option. Another option is have a look at what are your main challenges or what are your main KPIs. Or, for example, if a business, if at the C level, the business has set out a certain strategy, we're focusing on either creating new product streams or customer support or efficiency, whatever it is, look at what your KPIs could look like in that context. And this would help you understand where the opportunities for AI use lie. So that's one part of it. The second part of it, which kind of needs to take place in parallel. Again, not very difficult. Essentially it's a conversation or a few conversations, which is take stock of the skills that you already have in your team. Because let's be real here, it's been over 2 years. People have likely been experimenting with AI and have probably discovered some use cases that are worth spreading across your team and the wider L&D organization. And then, of course, if you're coming up empty, mine and Donald Taylor's AI and L&D reports are, I think, a great resource for inspiration with the examples and case studies of what other organizations are doing. And of course, be happy to help you think about broader opportunities for AI and L&D as well. And so once you have the problem, what kind of you want to achieve with AI, and then you understand what kind of skills you have, what the gaps are, then put 2 and 2 together. Create opportunities for people to come together, ideate, and build AI solutions that help tackle the big challenges that you identified. And it may sound like this big thing, but it really, some organizations that I have seen, what they do is that, for example, they create lunch and learns, or they create show and tells. Friday afternoon, the entire L&D organization joins a call, people share what they have done, right? Or they have some sort of asynchronous challenge saying that, okay, so we have seen that one of our big time sinks is this administrative task that we keep doing every week. How about we go away for a few weeks individually, try to experiment with AI, how we might shave off some time off that task, how we might do it in a different way. And we come together, here's a meeting, like team meeting 2 weeks later, and we're going to debrief and see who did what, and maybe there's a solution that actually we can scale across the team. So very simple things, just as long as you're being deliberate about what you're doing. So to sum up, start with a problem is my broad advice always. Otherwise, you'll be overwhelmed by the sheer amount of options and, frankly, low-value AI uses.
Yeah, it's true. I just think that advice of starting with the practical stuff, things that you can do, things that are under your control, rather than trying to look at the big picture and massive leaps forward, it's better to make small steps till you understand capability. So give me some predictions, just long range, medium range. What's going to happen in 2 years, say, or this time next year? We meet again. What do you think will have gone on in that medium time frame?
I have a rule that I don't go on the record predicting the future with AI.
It's very wise.
Yeah, because that's not gonna age well. But what I'm gonna say is this: there is no one set future that we're sailing towards. Frankly, we are at a crossroads. It's not the kind of technology that is with other pieces of technology. You start adopting it because they have maybe a single use case, and they kind of spread out and then reach maturity. I feel it with AI, because it's not a piece of technology, but it is an enabler of other technologies, essentially. It can go into so many directions. We have so many sort of waves of hype, and not just hype, but actual promise. And also it's about what we do with it, because even the same type of AI use may, depending on how we apply it in our organizations, that also can go in different ways. So I feel that as an industry, we are at a crossroads. The actions that we take today to make use of AI, both as individuals and as L&D teams, they are going to define what happens with our industry. There's this huge opportunity, but also it's not a given that we'll take advantage of it. Especially looking at our history. I like to say this, that generative AI has made the value of content plummet, and so will the value of L&D if we tie ourselves to content. And I think this is something that we need to keep in mind as we think about how we're using AI and L&D.
That's very wise words, very, very wise words, and really good tips as well going forward. So, Egle, it's been a real pleasure talking to you, and thank you so much for giving up your time, and thank you for sharing solid, practical, and really well-informed advice and guidance. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nigel.
the L&D world, we all know our biggest challenge is knowledge fade and demonstrating ROI from our training interventions. At Elephants Don't Forget, we use artificial intelligence to guarantee that what you train your employees, they learn and retain. If you are looking to transform the impact your training content has in your business, improve the ROI, and perhaps help employees learn and retain even the dull regulatory material, drop me a line at nelly@elephantsdon'tforget.com.
This is a first for me. I haven't managed to capture Giles Smith and make him come along to speak to Learning Now TV, but he's agreed to do it today, for which I'm very, very grateful. So first of all, Giles, welcome to Learning Now TV.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here. I'm sure I would have come before, Nigel. I'm sure I would have come before.
That's very kind. Well, tell us a little bit about Media Zoo to kick us off. What is Media Zoo? What's it all about?
Yeah, great. First thing people tend to default to is the name, because it's a bit of an unusual name, and there is a background on that. We are a learning, communications, digital, technology, behavioral science business. So it's an eclectic mix of very different people, which is where the concept of the zoo came from, which was just this idea that we have a real mix of real talent in the organization we can leverage to help our clients. And we started in the media industry, so hence the name Media Zoo. But we are what we term as a learning and communications business that helps organizations engage their audiences both inside and out. And we do that with 4 core pillars, which is our creativity, our storytelling, our behavioral science, and our technology, which enables us to build highly engaging content that really resonates with an audience at a very personal level, helps understand the purpose of that content at both a personal level and a business-wide level. And we see through that increased engagements, which help people become earlier adopters into new content, new change, and new transformations organizations might be undertaking.
Yeah, those 4 pillars are really important, and you could argue that any organization in learning that doesn't embrace those four areas is in big trouble. And you got there first. So good luck, and I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that description. So what I wanted to lure you in to talk to today is something that I came across called Zooniversity. And I wanted to know what it is, why you did it, and what benefits it will give you as a company and maybe the world as well.
Yeah. I mean, thank you. Zooniversity is a great name. Came up by the team here at Media Zoo. So if we start with what it is first, because I think that's helpful. In many ways, it is our standard graduate program. We take young professionals coming out of university. We're based up in Scotland, so from Edinburgh University, Glasgow University School of Arts, and we put them on a 12-week development program. So we take their creative capabilities that they've developed through their time at university and before, and we hone those into real skills that can be applied in the business workplace. So we give them the ability to build learning and digital content using different tools such as Rise and Evolve. We help them understand how to film, how to edit, how to produce content. We talk to them about how to communication style and tell stories. And we also give them technical and digital building capabilities as well. So actually we round them as almost T-shaped professionals within the Media Zoo world, with a view that they will go on and become really valued members of the Media Zoo crew over the next 3 to 5 years or however long they stay with us, hopefully for longer than that. So in that sense, that's what it is. I think the why and how we've built it out is probably what makes it slightly different. So the why is we're a small business, and actually one of the biggest challenges that face small businesses is the ability to stay on par with some of the larger corporates around the salaries, and also how to create reward schemes that make us an attractive employer. So when we do have a churn of staff, often we find ourselves getting pushed really heavily on a salary rate that we couldn't match. But secondly, we then create space. We don't create space for other people to flourish and grow within our organization. So when I took the role of CEO 18 months ago, we built upon a concept we'd already started, which was how do we bring young, really exciting talent into the organization and make them not only see a career for themselves here, but actually see MediaZoo as somebody who's really pushing the boundaries of what could be.
So what you're trying to do, Giles, tell me if I'm right. What I think you're trying to do is say, if we have to just compete purely on salary, we're going to lose. Let's compete on value. Let's see what opportunities we can offer, what growth and development we can offer, and see that balanced against the salary you're going to get. You end up with a very attractive proposition that people are interested in.
And you're absolutely right. And statistically, why it really works is because all the stats show, particularly around apprenticeships, that actually people have greater loyalty and advocacy for organizations that have helped them on their way through to the career. And my view as a leader is that for a time anybody is with us, whether they be here for 6 months, 6 years, or for their whole career, we want to really help them progress. And when they do choose to leave, because maybe that amazing offer's arrived and we can't match it, or they're going in a different direction for their career, I want them to leave feeling that MediaZoo was a great place for them to work, and it really helped them take that step forward. And to start that right at the beginning of their journey as an employee or on their career is a great way to give young people the boost that I think they desperately need in what you just
and also, not only do they leave on good terms, they tell other people, and that's really important. You'd be amazed the power of word of mouth. If people leave MediaZoo, go around saying, "Don't ever work there. Oh my God, that Giles Smith. Oh goodness me," then it's really hard to overcome that negativity. Whereas if people leave and say, "You should go there. Oh, that's a great opportunity. Honestly, it was the fantastic decision to come there." You're almost 3/4 of the way through the recruitment process before they even walk through the door, because you've got that kind of glowing reputation running in front of you.
And I think that applies both on the employees and the teams that we build here. It also applies for those people who've been at MediaZoo for a while, because small businesses are normally quite operationally flat. So therefore, how do you progress your career in an organization you're enjoying working with? Well, we need, unfortunately, some churn, some people to leave for people to step up, obviously. And it's so easy for small businesses to dash out and try and recruit and not embrace the talent you have in-house. So we really took a view before we even did the university, which was, first and foremost, we recruit from within. So as soon as a vacancy becomes available, we look within, we look at the talent, we push people up, and then the Zooniversity very much became the bit at the bottom, which is feeding new young talent into the organization. And if I'm honest, it keeps us all really fresh as well. It keeps new ideas coming in, different ways of how people are communicating and learning, which unfortunately aren't necessarily aligned to me as a Generation X, So you get that young thought process coming in, really provoking the work that we're doing and making us think about how we go forward.
It's such a great opportunity to work at MediaZoo. We're able to work with lots of really cool clients, do a lot of really cool work, and I've been able to grow in ways that I didn't ever see coming out of uni.
The work is amazing, just different things all the time. Like I said, design, learning software that I would never have even heard of.
It's a really safe place to give it a go and try. And I think that kind of almost experimentation is what I've learned to embrace a bit more.
You can see from chatting to people being so open in the office where it might take you, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to take sort of core creative skills further forward into a real professional environment.
I've learned so much that I didn't even know was possible. Practical skills for filming, for production. You get to learn so many different skills.
I think it's the fantastic fit for a graduate recruit. Because at MediaZoo we work in such a dynamic, fast-paced way. It allows you to try your hand at everything, see what you really like, see what you might have never thought you'd be interested in. And so for me as a grad, that was a really unique experience.
And also your attitude towards young people coming into the organization is obviously not shut up for a couple of years until you've got the experience to be able to talk to me, because we know everything and you know nothing. You're saying, on the other hand, come in, we really want your ideas, we want your curiosity, we want your creativity, and we want to tap it immediately, and we want you to grow and develop as we grow and develop as an organization. And, there's a theory called legitimate peripheral participation. Well, it sounds highfalutin, but it's not. It's basically saying that if people at the periphery feel that they can make a contribution, as well as people at the center, then you've got a much more healthy organization than one where you say nothing, you say a little bit, you say a sentence, and finally you get to talk in paragraphs, after 5 years. That's not what you want. You want much more fluidity, much more engagement, and much more connection all through the organization.
Yeah, I think we try and have that as an organization as a whole. The standing joke is often being here at Media Zoo, there are 100 people who work here, 99 creatives, and then Giles Smith. I personally want people to come to the table with ideas. And the way we foster that within the university is when they arrive, each cohort, and we're on our third cohort, each cohort takes the responsibility for building the internal training for the whole business for that year. And then they can choose new projects. And we're really proud of the work that the Zoo University junior creatives have done this year on International Women's Day. And if you followed any Media Zoo posts, all of that content, all of those ideas came from the Zoo University. And we gave them full permission to take it forward in the way they felt best represented young people, particularly young females, coming into the workplace with a sense that they may not be able to progress as far as some of their male counterparts. And therefore we give them a voice and they bring a different perspective to it. And it's a perspective that I think, we all should stand up and listen to. And I think a really nice way forward for the business to grow.
I completely agree. So, you're setting a tone, you're setting a level of energy, and you're setting expectations, and therefore you end up with a more vibrant community than you ever would have done if you'd have said, come in, sit down, shut up, and eventually you'll be able to be useful to us. You're saying day one, you are really valuable. We're going to put you through a rigorous training program for 12 weeks. Then you're going to perform for us because we brought you in, because we trust you, because we think you're smart and we think you're capable. And then you give them some rope. And I think that's the best way you can build a really vibrant community of 100 people. And that's a great number, to be incredibly creative, but connected at the same time.
And I'd like to add that I think from our perspective, we are a commercial business at the end of the day. We want our people to be working with our clients and producing great content for them. And the university gives us another service line that we're also able to support our customers with, which is the ability to tap into that young talent at maybe reduced costs than you might pay for somebody who's been in the industry for a long time, and help you build out content really quickly, really effectively, that still matches the standards that Media Zoo sets for itself. And that ability then that those individuals may go and work with those clients both on a contract basis. I've got people on site at various customers who are there full time, or may at some point actually transition employment from Media Zoo into the market to some of those customers, is all great for us. It's great for both our commercial business, but it's also great for our social impact, where we firmly believe in inspiring positive change through positive social impact and helping people with that first step up on their career. So it ticks a lot of boxes for Media Zoo, and we're really proud of the work that the team and the Zoonies, as we call them internally, but junior creatives as they're known, put in to make it a success.
Yeah, I think on that note we should end. But congratulations! I think it's not only impressive for you internally, but I think people listening, watching this interview will also think this is a really brilliant idea, and I wish you the very best. I hope Media Zoo flourishes in the light of that, and you're doing all the right things. So, Giles Smith, thank you so much for talking to us today. It's been a real pleasure catching up with you.
Cheers, and likewise, and I look forward to doing it again soon.
Indeed.
Well, time flies when you're having fun. That's the end of another Learning Now TV. Nigel, some great interviews this month. You've been super busy. You've carried the load this month. I've got a few lined up for next month. But was there anything that connects all of the different topics from this? Because they're quite disparate, but lots of
very,
common
very different.
ground.
The common ground, I think, is innovation, thinking things through afresh and doing everything differently from the way you used to do it. And it's Zooniversity, where they're thinking about how they can recruit and develop young people. What makes them want to come to MediaZoo and not a ton of other companies? And Zooniversity becomes a real difference. Why would you need a maturity model? Because things are changing so fast. You need some sense of direction and where you're going. And AI, you've got to get on top of AI. AI will change everything. And therefore, you've got to start planning and scheming, looking forward about how your organization is going to change. So they're all about adjusting to a very turbulent present, in a sense, and making decisions that will affect your future. And I suppose that the basic underlying truth of all of them is, don't just sit and talk about it, do things now. Start now and adjust later if necessary.
Don't let perfect get in the way of the good. And
exactly.
None of us can afford to sit still, right?
Exactly. I think that's right. And all three of those are totally different indicators about how you've got to think differently, move forward, make decisions, and try to build for a increasingly, I have to say, uncertain future.
Yeah, very much so. So on the bright side, we've got lots of opportunity to discuss innovation and moving forward coming up with some events. So do you want to talk us through what's coming up? We've got the big one next month.
The big one is on the 23rd and 24th of April, and that is our good friend Learning Technologies. And that is going to be in Excel, as usual. It's combining with HR technologies, so don't get muddled up like I did. I was in the middle of the HR technologies saying, I don't know any of these people. What is... And I just crossed a line in the exhibition.
Invisible line.
It was like a parallel universe, Kate, a parallel universe. So that's going ahead. Bigger and as impressive as usual, but I think even bigger this year. It's going to be huge. Then Unleash America. That's going to be in your favorite second home, Las Vegas.
I'll be there. Looking forward to that.
You'll be there at Unleash America. Wow.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, supporting on the startup program. So looking forward to that.
Excellent. And then, of course, the World of Learning Conference is in May, 20th of May, and that will be, as usual, in Birmingham. And finally, HR World Summit. HR World Summit takes the AITD conference, will be in Melbourne on the 21st to 23rd of May, AITD conference, and the HR World Summit is in Lisbon, in Portugal, on the 21st of May. So you can't be at both, Kate. You cannot be in Lisbon and Melbourne. You pick which one you're gonna.
It's physically impossible. Yep.
Completely.
It certainly is event season. So, and also, if you're going to these events, let us know. What do you think? What were your takeaways? Do you want to come on the show and talk about it? We would love to hear your feedback, because Nigel and I always have views. We never lack for an opinion, and we would love to be able to hear yours as well. So drop us a line, get in touch if you're attending any of those events. You'd love to do a recap.
Yeah, and people don't believe what we say, but if someone has a participant and saying this was really useful, or this was more useful than that, that's very helpful to people who are looking, going, where do I pick? Is it Lisbon or Melbourne? So we're back again on the 24th of April. So we'll be back on the last day of Learning Technologies. They should stream it live from Learning Technologies. I can't imagine why they're not, Kate.
That could be our outdoor broadcast.
It could be first outside broadcast. Yes, that's exactly right. I think we should float that idea.
We'll speak to Colin. Speak to the boss.
Thanks very much. Good to see you, Kate. See you next month. Take care.
And you always. Bye.
Bye.